We went out with the Girl Guides last night to do a charity event. Bob Ward and myself and Marisa Matthews, when we travel, we try to do a charity event everywhere we go. So we called around, and the only thing, thank you, the only thing that we could find was picking up trash with the Girl Guides. I didn't know what that was, but apparently it's like Girl Scouts. But there's these young Welsh girls, gathered, and we had to have like this briefing. It had to be a safety briefing. We don't do safety briefings in America. You just do stuff, and if you die, that's natural selection. And so we had to do a safety briefing, and the lady that's in charge she's got maps, and she's tapping them with this pointer. And I lived in the UK for many years in the military. I was in the military here, and she's pointing at all these things, and these girls are there, and I'm like, this feels like a tactical briefing. And of course, everybody turns around and looks at the weird American, and I'm like, oh, that was out loud. And so one of the little girls, after it was all over, my favorite quote of the evening was, "Mommy, can I get a picture with the American?" I don't think she'd never seen, well, my other favorite quote was another 6-year-old girl who said, we were picking up trash with those like grabbers and stuff like that. She said, "I found some KFC, but I didn't eat it." And I thought I said, that is life advice right there. That's good stuff. Welcome, everybody. That's not what we're talking about today. My name is Buck Woody. It is 10:10 on the nose. For the next 45, 50 minutes, we'll be talking about the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform. My good friend Simon, who was in here a little while ago, the guy responsible for all of this, said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform." He said, "No, what are you talking about?" And I said, "The Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform." He's like, "No, what is it?" And I said, "That's what I'm talking about, to tell you what it is." So in large part, what we're going to be facing today is a lot of data architecture. So even though I can't see very well, so I'll do this for a minute, can I get a show of hands of those of you that would self-identify as a database administrator? Care and feeding of databases, good stuff. Folks that are data architects, and you can be both, responsible for solutions and things. Okay, good. Or want to do that kind of work? Okay, because that's kind of where this is headed. We'll do some tech, but we're going to basically talk about a platform. I guess the rest, developers? Anybody? Developers? Okay, I'll talk slower. And then managers? Managers? Oh, okay, I'll give you some stuff you can take credit for my work. All right? Okay, I think we're good to go. I just wanted to make sure I knew who was in the room so we can frame things. I'm assuming that you've read the reason you're in here, so you want to hear about this. And we will go through each piece, and I'm going to give you an approach more than a marketing thing on what things do and are. We'll cover those things, but I'm actually going to give you sort of the real-world approaches. I do work with a lot of clients around the world. So a lot of folks that have to implement solutions. And they fall into, sort of a spectrum. One is the one-person shop. They have to do everything. One person is like the mail administrator and the DBA and the dev person and all that. And then there are companies that are huge, and there's somebody that just does, SSIS packages, right? That kind of thing. And even within that, we're all part of solutions. So even if you just got a vertical view of what you're supposed to be doing, that horizontal perspective can help you understand that. Does that sound okay with everybody, what we're going to do today? It will not hurt my feelings if you say, "No, I want to go do something else." You've only got so many heartbeats. Do not waste them on boring presentations, seriously. If you have questions, they have this app you're supposed to be using. If you type in that app, it'll put it up on a little screen up here, and I'll check that periodically, and I'll answer those in line as we go. And I may say, this is the answer, or I'll cover that later, or you may hear something you don't hear from Microsoft people a lot, which is, I don't know, but we'll find out, right? We'll go find it out. But if I don't know something, I won't make something up. I only do that at my house. And that's just self-preservation. I've been married for 38 years, and so you don't say, "I don't know." You just do whatever you're told. Okay, some of you know what I'm talking about. All right. So let's get started and talk about sort of where this thing came from. I'll tell you what it is in a minute, but I always get nervous about providing answers. I actually like to try to define the question. I'm a data scientist, and so when somebody asks me to do something, I'm like a 3-year-old. Why do you want to know that? And they'll say, "Well, I want to do this other thing." Well, why? Well, because we do this. Why? And here's how I know I've reached my last why. This is the Buck Woody patented way that you know you've hit the bottom of what you're supposed to work on in data science. And it's this question. And you can copy this down. What would you do differently if you knew the answer to that question? And if it's, I'd ask another question, then you're not there yet. But if you're going to change your behavior, if you're going to spend money or stop spending money or do something or implement something differently, that's the real question. What would you do differently? So I've been alive for a very long time. In fact, when I was young, we didn't have computers. We just yelled zeros and ones at each other. We didn't have ones. We just had to hammer the zeros into ones. No, I'm not that old, but I go back to the mainframes. And the key here is to make sure you're working on the right project. It's somebody will say, we should go do this. Really? Really? And you may say, hey, look, if they give me the money, I'll go work on it. That's the wrong answer. Make sure you're working on things that matter later in your career. I do a lot of career mentoring. Later in your career, telling people you were part of a team that the whole thing got cut is not glamorous. Make sense? Okay, good stuff. So, what are our challenges we have today? And these are the ones that boiled out. What data do I have? How many of you have tried to implement a master data management system or a data catalog? Raise your hand if you've tried to do one of those. How many of you were successful? Excellent. And if you were looking around, you'll see maybe like one hand went up out of that entire group. Main reasons that I've seen when I've tried to implement them, I've done them tons of times, industries around the world. The main thing is they're brittle, they don't stay up to date, and so on. So people don't know what data they have. They do realize the entire company is running on Windows 95 in Excel underneath a secretary's desk when he goes on vacation and turns the computer off that was running it. And that's when you find out the whole company was running on Excel. Come on, we all know Excel's the world's largest database. Don't get me started. We all know that. Everybody runs on Excel. So they don't know what data they have. They don't know where it is. Can I trust it? Do I know that's the real number? If you ever want to bring a project to its knees, I went into one company that they said, we need to identify, we're going to do a data catalog. And I said, what is inventory? This is at a manufacturing company. 7 weeks later, we had decided what inventory was. It's all a definition of terms, and where is that located? Can I trust this inventory number to be the inventory number? Turns out in France, if you buy something, even if it's not delivered to you yet, that's inventory because it's taxed. But in the US, until it's delivered to your warehouse and it's on your balance sheet, it's not inventory. So what is inventory, right? So those are the kind of things that we faced. Can the right people access the data needed to make the right decisions? This was the other reason I had master data management fail. Only a few people could use it. I had to buy licenses. They didn't know how to use it. It was complicated. It was brittle, so it just fell apart. Next thing they told me is, how can I get from data? I don't care about your data. Data is like numbers and facts. Knowledge is remembering numbers and facts. And then wisdom is applying knowledge and facts to get the right response. So for instance, a tomato is a fruit, right? And you know a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. That's the difference. That's as good as it's going to get. Are you guys out there? Is everybody still? Okay, good. All right. A couple of you are. And the next thing that we don't often care about, but our businesses really need to care about, is what's my compliance exposure? All of us are subject to governmental regulations, and it's getting worse and worse. Every time Congress meets, every time Parliament meets, every time any government meets, there's more regulations. And a lot of that's good stuff. It's protecting us, and a lot of it's just a lot of work. And if you deal in multi-country environments like I do, you have to do a Venn diagram to figure out, am I allowed to put the first name of the person I'm talking to in this database? And so we don't even know what our compliance is. So this is the problem we have. And we have them in three places. Operational databases, and I'm going to group analytics as anything, like looking at a nice report in a spreadsheet, that's fine, that's analytics to me. I'm a data scientist, all my other data scientist friends get mad at me. You have to have a data warehouse and you have to do exploratory data analysis. Sure, that's fine, but it's all analysis. If I can get to an answer, that's analytics. So you can do that with a query, you can do that with a report in Excel. So this one place we have, and then the last place is data governance, which includes that data catalog and all the rest of stuff. Is everybody good with this? Does this resonate with anybody? Good stuff? Yeah, kind of looks like what you're thinking. And here's what's interesting. When I go in, it's not always a tech problem I have to solve. I don't have a hardware problem. I don't have a software problem. I've got a wetware problem. I've got to get the execs to pay for stuff, right? How many of you know the right thing to do, but you can't because nobody will pay for it? You need people, you need time, you need projects, you need budget, you need to go somewhere and learn, you need to bring on staff. They won't give you any of that. They say, I want that, but I don't want anything else to change. It's not the way it works. So a lot of times I'm brought in, the company knows what to do. The IT staff knows exactly what they need, but I've got to convince their management to spend money. And I'm from more than 500 miles away and I have a briefcase, so clearly I'm the expert. So I say what what you say to your company, and they go, that's brilliant, and they do it, which is just terrible, but that's the way it works. Here's what we found. This is from a Harvard Business Review article, and it's called a data culture. It's making sure that executives know that data is an actual asset, like their people, like their products, like their services. That data is something they can use. And once we do that and they become data-centric, once an exec knows what a backup is, or what RTO and RPO is, once they know that, we see a 4x, a 4 times improvement in revenue and performance. This is from a study, and actually not by us, it's an actual study from Harvard. All right, so we came up with this thing called the Intelligent Data Platform, but it's not a thing. You don't go buy it. It's a way for us at Microsoft to make everything work together. I know that you're familiar with the fact that every product we make at Microsoft works perfectly with every other product we make at Microsoft. And so you may find that that's not always true. And guess what the problem is there? The executives that are said, you make this great, make that great. The other executives told, you make that great, and they make that great, but they're not told, make all of you great. We have had opportunities where we've done that. We had a program for a while called One Microsoft, where we actually took time and money and people and said, no, your stuff's gonna work together. So we've taken that a step further in Azure Data. So what's Azure Data? Azure Data is anything to do with data. So SQL Server is now called Azure Data. It's part of Azure Data. It's still SQL Server, but it's part of Azure Data. But we said, okay, Azure SQL is the SQL engine. And the stuff inside Synapse Data Warehouse is SQL Server oriented. You can run Transact SQL on that. But it goes deeper than that. We got the big boss over here and the big boss over here, and we said, this thing is going to talk to that thing. Make it happen. It's a simple thing to say, but like they say, it's like difficult to do, easy to say. So what is it? It's governance, analytics, and data processing. It's all 3 of those functions working end to end. So here it is. We have those operational databases, those analytics and data governance that we talked about earlier. We go ahead and put those into stacks, and then we add products underneath that will make those work together. And those products are, because the fonts are a little small, SQL Server, Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, and some of the other things like Synapse and Purview and ADF, Azure Data Factory, and so on. So that's where that comes from. But it's more than that. What do you get with that? You get, my animation's gone here, but you get the Azure Active Directory. Don't poo-poo that, because I give you, as part of your compliance, multi-factor authentication and so on, and tracking and logging inside Azure. What does that do for you? I can give you single sign-on to any Azure asset. But wait, there's more. Remember we said, make all this work together? So we had to reach across to the Azure Active Directory folks and said, we want people in SQL Server on-prem to log in with Azure Active Directory. How do we do that? And they said, oh, you have to do this. No, we got to make this work. So in SQL 2022, now you can. On-premises or over in a lesser cloud like Amazon or Google, you can actually log in with Azure Active Directory, so your users who are already using Office 365, now you can put them inside a database, and you have that available. We made that work, but not just a database, also in Cosmos, also in Synapse, also in Purview, and so on. And there's more when we get down into that. Layered across everything is Microsoft Defender. We do have a method to our naming madness. When we put things like Microsoft in front of something, it means it works in Azure and on-prem. Remember when it was Azure Defender? Now it's Microsoft Defender, so it works both. When you see something Azure, it only works in Azure. And when you see something that says Microsoft, is supposed to work on-prem and in Azure. Now that's not true. Obviously there's always, right, you spend your whole time learning the exceptions. So there are exceptions, but in general, that's what that means. People told us, I want an easy button for security, so I teach cybersecurity as well. And it's complicated. You have no idea. Anybody in cyber here? Anybody else in cyber here? It is wildly complicated, and you will always have a job if you know databases or security, or both. You'll always have a job. If you got somebody, you probably have the same thing. Parents will come to me, what should my son or daughter learn when they come out of high school? They want to get one of those jobs at Microsoft or in tech. And I tell them, go learn databases or security or both, and you'll have a job. Everything else comes and goes, those are always around. But it's mindlessly difficult. It is unbelievably complex. So the second thing after I teach these classes, these people are like, oh my gosh, can you just give me a button? So Defender's your button, and it really does work. And we'll take a look at some things here in a little bit to make that true. We also have the next thing that's layered over the top is Sentinel, and Sentinel's kind of the security thing too. It will literally watch your databases. I do a session with Ree Merritt that comes in and says, she's my DBA, and I write some bad code in an app, and she catches me doing a SQL injection and can tell me the code to write to fix it real time. She gets an email that I've done this bad thing. So this is the kind of thing Sentinel can do for you, and it's across everything, not just SQL Server. And then we have policy controls. So let's pop back up to that Azure Active Directory. Now I can go into Purview, which is our data governance, which we'll see in just a second. I can go in there and say, I need these 4 people to be able to do performance tuning on my databases, but only for 2 months. I go to my servers, I find the 10 or 20 or 30 servers, and I say, they have DMV access for this long, here's their Azure Active Directory login, go. And it will push down the policy from Purview into the on-prem SQL servers. So if you've ever done the kind of permissions thing that you have to do when people need to get in things for a period of time, it's a nightmare. Think about that on hundreds of servers. So this works together. So you can see, hopefully just from, we haven't even started, you can see these integrations, just these integrations you see here. You can see that they're just so powerful with what they can provide. But let's go see a little deeper. And I'm also going to couch this in terms of in my mind, the best procedure to follow to get these put up. First thing you need to start on is knowing where your data is. This is the boring part, and it's the hardest part. And if you've ever done master data management or a data catalog, if you've ever done anything like, it's a nightmare. It's really hard to do, but it's worth the effort. And this one's different. This particular way of doing things are different. We call this Microsoft Purview. Does everybody know what Purview means? I mean, like the word purview? So Purview just means I have visibility and control. So if I were to say, oh, the database backups are in your purview, that means you own it, you know how it works, and it's under your control. And we would come to you. So that's what this word is basically focused on. All of your data, we give you purview over it. All right, what does this do? First, it gives you a unified map of everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. That spreadsheet that's under the desk, you can actually track that. You can actually track that it's there. You have manual, if you've got text files running around and you want to catalog them, you can do that. You can then tag them with tons and tons of metadata. You can come up with your own. And you provide a glossary of how your data lays out. It also can provide then these cool reports that shows where everything's at, sensitivity labels, and it can even discover sensitivity labels, like you put a social security number or identification number in there, and it'll come across that data and go, I think you're storing some sensitive data here, and it'll let you know that, all automatically. And there's even a feature that'll say, you know, got this Excel spreadsheet over here, I'd like to be able to share it to you. You can even share it through Purview under the administrator's control. There's all kinds of lockdowns in here. There's roles inside where we can let people be readers and writers and managers and auditors. We can do all and you can make your own. Again, all hooked back into Azure Active Directory. I'll show you an example of all this in just a little bit. It's really impressive. And we thought, one of the things that was always tough in master data management that I found anyway, was getting people to find things. It's just really hard to search. You got another screen with another language. So he said, what do people like the most on Earth? And obviously it's Bing, but there's another one out there called Google. You may have heard of it. I don't know if they've got a future, who knows. But anyway, they have this interface, and their interface is just, what do you want? So we said, what if we could do that with data? We just put in, what do you want? Like inventory. Show me inventory. And it will crawl across everything you've done automatically and show you all of the things that are mentioned with inventory, with who owns it and how you can get access. It doesn't have the data, it's just metadata. So you can search it like you search the web. So we said, if we just make it simple, then we do it. And you say, wait a minute, can just anybody search? Well, anybody you let. And my view is let everybody in your company search the data. It's metadata. And they're like, hold on a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. And here's what my statement is always, put the hay down where the cows can get it. Make sure everybody can get to where they need to get data, and you'll empower your users. Power BI now pops up in there and says, where's inventory? There it is, great, can I get access? Yes, you can, boom, they make a report. Or if you'd like to do it your way, they can call you and have you come do all that work for them. I prefer to push that down to where people are. We'll learn more about Purview in just a bit, but it's really got two parts. The other interesting thing about Purview is it's got this Office 360, we call it M365 because it's also Dynamics and other things. But it's got this one side so you can discover that data too, but we're talking about data like we use it, like developers, DBAs, and architects use it. So I start here, even if it's not everything, go ahead and put it in here. Get your data map created. That'll then create your data catalog, and then you can get insights over that. You don't have to do anything, it does that for you, and you can share the data. I don't use the sharing data feature a lot, but it's super handy when I have it. Once again, you've got a platform of things, Purview, Data Insights, Data Map, and it's integrated into everything we have. And remember, it's that same, all those features we had earlier. Go through it. So let me just walk you through the process, and then what I'm going to just to show you really quick, and then I'm going to show you a full example here at the end. So first of all, you open up a web browser, your favorite web browser named Bing, and then you go in here, the Edge browser, and then you go in here and you just go straight to Purview. You click on Register Sources. That's as tough as it gets first. Once you do that, you pick a source. You may see some icons in there you recognize. It's a different Microsoft. This is not your Ballmer's Microsoft. We've stopped fighting everybody, and we're embracing and extending. If you use a lesser brand cloud, that's up to you. We'll still catalog your data for you. And yes, we have things like S3 buckets. We have things like text files and Excel. This list, by the way, is not exhaustive at all. This is just the first panel that goes up, and you just type in there what you want. So once you've added that source, you've got some sources now you've added. In this case, the person's got data lake, file storage, Cosmos DB, an Azure Blob, and an Azure SQL database they've added. So once you've added those, you have to provide credentials, and you have to provide connection strings, and you've got to get certificates if that's what's needed, and all those things. Once that's done, now it creates a nice data map, and you can begin linking them and joining them to show what goes to what and how what works with what, and so on. Very straightforward drag and drop. Look familiar? Same team that did SSIS helped design this interface. Same team that did Azure Data Factory designed this interface. One Microsoft. We're making it all work together. Now what I have is I've got all of my stuff, and I can start making scan rules. What's a scan rule? I can tell it to go out and look at that data periodically and make sure it's up to date. If it's a relational system, I can actually extract metadata. I know about Oracle and Teradata and SQL Server, and I can actually go get new columns and so on. Metadata, okay, we're not storing the data, we're only storing metadata so you can search where is it, what is it. I can set timers on those, I can set conditions on those, and so on. You're not meant to read the fonts, by the way. Once I've done, I can give classifications to my data. It will automatically assume all the different rules we know about because we have to comply with the same stuff you do. So we've got those rules built in. So we go find those, you can apply those, and you can make your own. You can classify your data any way you want, all kind of tagging and things. Based on those classifications, you can say this person can do that and that person can do this. Once classifications are done, now I just give them a search bar. And they can begin to search for stuff. And this one says the word revenue, badly, it says the word revenue. And you can see that the asset suggestions come back tax revenue, customer revenue, revenue 2020, tab separated value file, and it's even got suggestions in IntelliSense like, did you mean revenue finance, revenue customer, and so on. So you can get pretty creative with how you search. Once you do that, it shows you where it is. And you can see your lineage. For those of us not in the data mining world, lineage means going back to where did you get this and how did it change along the way. Something as a data scientist I care about a lot is if you've transformed the data. Most of us are familiar with ETL, extract, transform, and load. We're familiar with that. In data science, you don't do that. You do extract, load, and you transform when I want to see it. For instance, SQL Server has what, 31, 32 data types? The R programming language has 9. So obviously there could be some issues there. If I go ahead and start changing the data before I get it, statistically that can make a huge difference, right? You don't want a drug that's 99% efficient when it's really 99.9% efficient. So now you can see your full data map. You can click on it and go right to the definition. Okay, so we've cataloged our data. We know where it is, and so on. Now we need to store it. There's this stuff out there called databases. You may have heard of them. I was around, it's so funny, God bless them. So I got to go on a diatribe here for a minute. So in the late 1960s, early 70s, there was a man named E.F. Codd. You've heard of this guy, right? It's the normalization, the key, the whole key, and nothing but the key, so help me Codd. All right, that's normalization, by that was free. So they did this because we had a couple of problems. Data consistency, data isolation, data durability, and so on. The acid properties of data, atomicity, and so on. So, and when he invented that because they had problems. We used to store things, believe it or not, in text files. And we used things like COBOL or Fortran to join them up. We linked them together. And so I hate to say this, but I was talking to a guy from Google the other day. He was talking about, how they invented the NoSQL thing. I'm like, dude, we did NoSQL. That's just precious. We did NoSQL in 1965, but okay, you invented something. God bless you. So it's all over with the databases where you can do NoSQL and SQL. But here's what I want to get you to understand. We have a lot of different kind of databases. These are structural databases or relational databases. Does everybody know what relational databases means? Do you know what that means? What does it mean? What is relational database? What does the word relational mean?
So they are linked together with keys.
Okay, and his response was, they're linked together. It's the relationships. Wrong, incorrecto. You know what it is? Relations are actually the tables. A relation, this comes from set theory. And I thought the same thing. Oh, relationships. No. It's actually relations that are tables, that are sets of data. Remember the old sets you did in high school with the circles and they joined, and set ABC and C, F, G, and they joined with the circles and the Venn diagrams and all that? That set theory is where relational databases came from, and we have more than one. We have Azure SQL, which will allow you to do everything you need to do, but we do to you what you do to your developers. You know how you just give them a database, you don't give them the instance? We do that to you. That's Azure SQL. When somebody asks me to explain it, that's how I explain it. It also has incredible scale. I was on the Red Dog team when we invented Azure, and one of the first things we put on was Azure's, or SQL Azure back then is what it was called. And it had 1 gig databases, and then we rocketed up to 5 gig databases. And now we have massive, stunning, massive scale. You can still get a small database, but you can get quite large ones. We have Cosmos DB. For those of you not familiar with Cosmos DB, it is a very interesting construct. All big data has to be done the same way. You have to separate processing from storage. How many have been to a grocery store? A couple people? Nobody? Just me? I'm the only one that's ever been to a grocery store. When you go to the grocery store, that is distributed processing. That's Hadoop. That's the way that works. Let me explain what that means. Every cash register has the same algorithm. Take the item you have, add it to the item behind that, and total it. And then if there's another item, do that again. But all of you as shoppers, you're the data, distributed data. You go to the line that's the shortest one, and you've got your toilet paper and your cans of corn or whatever you do, and they add yours up, same algorithm. At the end of the day, they take all of the totals from all the registers and send it to the back, and the person said, we made this much profit today. You can all put Hadoop on your resumes now. That's how Hadoop works. Cosmos DB is just like that. It's distributed data, distributed processing, but we went a little further. We said, what if we didn't have just one way to query the data? What if we put these APIs and we gave you your choice, like Gremlin, if you want to talk in a sort of a distributed database that's a graph-oriented way. What if you want to talk to something that's JSON-based or document-based or whatever? Okay, we'll give you an API for that. What if you even want a SQL API, but you want a distributed database? So we fixed that and we did that. So Cosmos DB can be anything you want. The other thing that's interesting is that we made it available around the world and we let you choose your consistency model. What is consistency model? We know what about locks, and you should always use no lock, right? Because that makes it really fast on a SQL server. I only say that because there was a guy in here the other day, he was really railing against no lock, and I just want him to see the video and freak out. Never use no lock. Almost never use no lock. Well, this is kind of like that. You can choose no lock. In other words, I don't mind reading data that hasn't been written yet. It's okay. And I don't mind reading some data and it's not there yet. That's okay in this instance. It's okay. It's a tweet. Who cares? And then you may say, no, no, no. I want to only read this data if it's consistent. You can choose your model. We have 5 of them, different consistency models you can have. So that's Cosmos. Some people like Postgres, but they don't like setting up Postgres and managing Postgres. So we have that available as a service. Some people like MySQL, but they don't want to set up and manage MySQL. We have that as a service as well. Some people like MariaDB or MariaDB, depending on how you say it. We have that. And some people use a cache. Caches are fantastic, by the way. If you've not invested in learning about caches, go invest some time. And then we also have Cassandra. A lot of people use Cassandra. So we have all these available with the data, and once again, you get Azure Active Directory, you get Defender, you get Sentinel, but now we've added that Purview we talked about. Purview can see into all these and control all these and map all these. Do you see how this is coming together? If you begin to put, we're not trying to make you use another new thing. We're trying to let you use whatever you want, and we'll work together. We promise to work together better at Microsoft. That's probably, I probably could have summed up the entire talk just by saying that. We're trying to work better together at Microsoft. But there's literally a remit. There is literally people, there's literally money being spent on you will connect these things up. And I'll even show you some more connection places in just a moment. So we, again, have the Active Directory, everything, data insights, the map, the views, the searchability. So you're bringing a lot of stuff together right here. But wait, there's more. Inside SQL Server, we actually have now Azure Synapse. And Bob Ward's going to cover these in his talks. I'm going to go ahead and build these out. Let me go back. Build these out. But what this does is this. I can enter some data in an on-premises or other cloud SQL server. Once I've entered that, I can have that trickle up automatically within just a few moments into Synapse, so it's available for analytic queries. Once it's there in Synapse, I can query it with SQL, I can query it with Spark, I can look at it with Power BI, and so on. And, well, I'll show you a demo in a moment that I think will bring this all together for you a little better, so you can see how it works. In SQL Server 2022, we've actually added some data virtualization to where you can query SQL Server data, you can query Oracle data, you can query MongoDB data, you can query SAP HANA data as if it were SQL Server tables. The same, you just make a fake table in SQL Server and it points over there. Doesn't bring the data in. It literally, you query in Transact SQL, it runs out and does the SAP HANA thing for you. Yes, there's security and all kinds of things you need to worry about, but we document it heavily. But we've added a new thing. You can talk to Azure blobs natively, like backup and restore. Just happens. And now you're triple redundant in the data center. You can be quadruple redundant and so on. But we've added in an S3 interface. Now, a lot of people think S3 is product. It's not. It's an interface to a product, but it's an open source interface. And a lot of companies implement it. There's one called MinIO that's done with software, but Pure Storage, who's here at the conference, you should go let them show you how they do stuff with S3 and SQL Server. But you could query data in an S3 bucket in Amazon storage from Transact SQL and SQL Server and put permissions and rights and get Purview and get Active Directory and get all of those things from inside Transact SQL. So that starts making your job a lot easier to do those things. And we can also understand Parquet, Delta, CSV, and just raw text in those ways. All right, so we got our data governance is handled. We've got data storage handled, but now I need big data, I need machine learning, I need AI, I need all this stuff. I want to work with Spark, so what do we do with that? The little product we have called Azure Synapse Analytics. What does Azure Synapse Analytics provide for us? At the bottom, we have Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. That's always being worked on and improved. And it's got a query language over the top of it, and you can store anything there you want. JSON, documents, whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. We can then talk to that with SQL. We have dedicated pools. That's our old data warehouse product. So you can store massive amounts of distributed, queryable, relational data. But there's this thing out there called Apache Spark that works exactly the same way as the grocery store thing we talked about. It's just faster. They just have some memory optimization and some other tricks they do to make that even faster. Over the top of that, we can also put the Data Explorer. Now, how many of you have played with Azure Data Explorer? Anybody in the room? Is that the most incredible product ever? That is the unsung hero of data. You need to go look at that. Play with that, take a couple of courses, play with Azure Data Explorer. We give you data integration, management, monitoring, and security. That's built right in, and you still get all of those features we had before. And Purview knows about this, and Azure Active Directory knows about this, and Microsoft Defender knows about this. You take all your data, you ingest it. There is an ingestion pipeline system, and yes, it's Azure Data Factory. But it's integrated right into a single tool called the Studio. It's all based in the web. Your other tools can talk to it too. Azure Data Studio and so on can also talk to this product. Coming out of the other end, what can you do? We have pipelines to go to machine learning. So you can literally do Spark machine learning, or you can send it on out to Azure machine learning. And then you can also view it, of course, in Power BI, as you can see in the little animation here. This is your one-stop shop for really big data. But again, we were told, you guys work together. So SQL Server said, great, we'll make this Synapse link so that you can put stuff in SQL and you can see it over there. And we're working on all that all the time. What kind of tools do you have available to you? Well, you have a lot. Power BI, obviously, Azure Data Studio, web interfaces, all APIs, all the different APIs, and the Azure client, the text client tool, AZ CLI. Those are all, everything you do, you can do in here. And you have the full Azure resource model and bicep that you can use to store these things and you can stand them back up when you need to. Use resource groups. That is a tip I tell people quite often. Use resource groups. So you've got everything available to you. How would you like to see a real-world demo of this? Let's close out with a real-world demo. What do you think? Yeah. Sounds okay? All right. So we've seen a lot of different disparate stuff. Great feature, product, whatever. Let's take a look at a real life solution. So let me give you a little thing. We got a company, and they've got on-prem data that they want to do analytics on, and they've got real analytics. And what does this analytics do? This analytics sends their trucks out. Now, I don't know if do you guys have the supply chain problem over here? You can get anything you want, like a taxi shows up in seconds here in Wales. Has that been your experience? And when you go out to eat, they wait on you right away. Has that been your experience? Because I need to go eat where you're eating and go the taxis you're having. Everybody's got supply chain problems right now, right? There's not enough people, there's not enough product. Everything's all bunched up all over. So she's having to make the painful decision. She sells stuff to grocery stores. And she's got to make the painful decision of, I may have to not stock your store to make sure your store has the stuff. To do that, she wants to make sure that people aren't there at your store to buy things and no one's buying it off his shelf. You see the difference? This is a real problem. This is a real problem, actually, that we were presented. And they said, how can we fix this? So she wanted me to be able to update where people are buying things and the truck go, oh, okay, well, I'll take a left then. I was going to go to your store, I'll go to your store. Like on the road. How many of you would like to write that system to where it literally, real time, told a truck driver, take a left, and the truck does this. Okay, so they said, okay, what do you have? I said, well, I have Power BI on a phone. Do you guys use phones? They said, yeah, we're just using the phone for everything. I said, okay. So the truck driver plugs, her phone into the truck, and she's driving along, and then she wants to be told, turn left, turn right, take 10 boxes to you, and then go back and take them 3 at 3 o'clock, and so on. That's what she wanted. I'm like, okay, let me see what we can do here. So, this is a recording we have, and you can see what we do here. The first thing we do is we come inside, and let me make sure this is running, because I don't know if I set this animation to start. It takes a second for me to actually move my mouse. This is recording, no hands on the keyboard. So here's basically what we have. We've got our dashboard of the different things we have, and I have a resource group here for Synapse Analytics. I've got storage, I've got Azure Data Factory, I've got all these different things. I think it's set to run. Nope, it was set to run. It's just got to play. Hold on a minute. It's set to run. Come on, Buck. Give me just a second here. I got to make sure this is running. I waited a long time when I made the demo so I could rattle off, and now I've been hoisted on my own petard here. So let's just wait for a second. All right, I'll drone on until I see movement. The first thing I do is I draw out what I'm creating here. So these are just all my resources. I'm telling you about the grocery store. I went too early on the other slide. I'm supposed to be telling you all that stuff again. Let me tell you again what the problem is? No, you don't. All right, so we're gonna come through here, give it a second. The general idea is that, and I'll watch for movement. The general idea is I wanna make sure that the stuff that I'm putting in my on-premises SQL server gets transmitted up to Synapse and then gets out to the truck driver's Power BI report on their phone real time. It's not this long. I'm gonna do something, this is terrible, right? I'm just gonna do this. It's gonna come here, playback, start automatically, play full screen. So why aren't you playing then? Okay, it's playing. See, it's playing. Hold on just a second. All right, so I'll do the play from here. It's really playing. It's just for some reason I'm taking an exceptionally long time. Usually get a little bar here that lets me go forward. Huh. All right, let's go back to the slide view. Sorry, guys. This is bad juju. I shouldn't be doing this. Let me just pull this down like this. Let me hit the play button here. And we'll watch it real time. See? We know how to do this. We got time. We're doing great on time. Okay, where do you start clicking, Buck? I start clicking right about, good night, look at this. See, I meant to tell that, there we go. Okay, now I'm telling the story. Okay, now we're good. I'm just gonna leave this like this. That's not okay? All right, let's go back. And it's playing. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. Okay. So what we've got now is I'm gonna pop over and show you my production stuff, my inventory stuff, my sales stuff, and my partner stuff. So that's what we're doing here. I'm in Azure Data Studio, as you can see, obviously. And I've just selected the top 5 from everybody, and here's what I've got. Got all these different things. These are bicycles and so on that I'm selling. So you can see the different things. I've got 5 products in here that you can see, and I've got a description on the catalog that I'm using for that particular thing. Now I come over, the other team is using Cosmos DB. And they say, okay, I want to see the stuff. They love notebooks, Jupyter notebooks. I'm kind of a notebook guy myself. So they're using data over there as well. Once again, I want to see both these things in real time and not just these things. So I can see they love to use these visualizations for their analysis, but they're only doing analysis over their data. I want that. So let's go create a Synapse Analytics workspace. That's the first thing I do. And you can see I've got different things I can do in here, including the different places I can put data, these pools idea that we have. So let's pop over here inside the workspace, and I'll make a data hub here. I'll pop up here, and I can actually put this in a GitHub code repository. So all this is covered in CI/CD. Once I've created this, I can make my links over to product information from SQL DB. And we'll go take a look at sort of how that works. This has been set up to link already, so I can see that data. So we'll click on that in just a minute, still running good. Okay, and I'll go over to the AdventureWorks. Now this is a SQL DB, not the on-premises database. Yet another connection that I wanna make, and I wanna put all this data together in one place. So I've made a link connection, and I'm gonna look up number 751, and I can see my quantities that I have in each location. So now what I want to do is say I've got those in this location. Now I'd like to go see that inside Synapse. So I run Synapse and it says, yep, you've got those things. So let's make sure we got 60 and 7. Same thing, 105, 32. So I know what products I have that I can ship around to these different stores. So now what I want to do is I want to go update a product inside SQL Server and then change that to have a different value using 60 and 105. Let's go change number 60 to get a different number. So we'll pop back over to SQL DB, and I've got 755. So I get that number. 751 has 60 units, or 60 has 751, 105 units. So we'll just subtract 1 just to get a different number, 751 and 60. That was not over in Synapse. And this is all real time. Everything I'm doing here is real time. That's why there's a little bit of a lag there. Let's go make sure. This one now says 104 in SQL. It says 104. Now let's pop back over. Yeah, we get it, Buck. It's 104. We pop back over to Synapse, and let's see if it went. It does have a slight delay, like 10, 15 seconds. So let's see if it went. So we'll go and see. We had 105. Here we go. And we run it. There it is. And we've got 104. And all you do to set up the Synapse link is just next, next, finish. And you're done. Give it permissions, next, next, finished. So that's now available. But we had more that was going on in here. It wasn't just these. We actually, I can show you, by the way, let me show you this link connection here. Here's the SQL DB link connection. You can see the target table, the source table, all that stuff. This should look a lot like Azure Data Factory because it is Azure Data Factory. So you can go edit these things. You can transform if you want. You can make steps, typical Azure Data Factory stuff that you do. You can even set parameters, values, and add some more settings if you'd like to change things so you can see these things. You can give it the source and the sink in a sort of a properties view if you want to do it this way. You can even get a query. If you don't want a table, actually go after a stored proc or a view or whatever you'd like. You map it out. Once you're done, we go back in here, and there you see it. Now, what about that Postgres we had at yet another company that we need to make sure we have the products to sell in the right stores? So I can actually go over and I can map out, by the way, tables that are in Postgres that are different in Synapse. So I map these as well. I get all my settings, there's user properties. It tells me my charges, by the way, as I'm going. That's kind of handy, how much this is going to cost me in the schedule and so on. Once I do that, now I have the ability inside Azure Synapse to query Postgres tables that I brought in into from that source, and you can see all the different ones I have here. Databricks, Data Lake, HD Insight, all these different things. I can now query things as if they are a local table that are really over in Postgres. This one happens to be a Postgres service, but I can query Postgres from inside my analytics. And then I could join those together with the SQL data and with the Cosmos data and everything else. But wait, there's more. I'm not really good at Power BI, so please don't mock me here. This is the Power BI the person gets. Okay, I want to direct my trucks. How do I do it? I can actually go see location 10, and I can see what's selling, what quantities available to sell, and so on. And that's, by the way, this is right inside. This is in Power BI Desktop, but you can build this right inside the Synapse Studio and then publish it to desktop if you want. I'm very proud of this. I'm not really good at Power BI. So I was so proud, and I showed it to Patrick LeBlanc, and he hung up on me when I called him. Here we have the Synapse link, or rather the Cosmos link, same exact thing. I'm over in my Cosmos workspace now, and I say, I want to put that. Microsoft told me we have to work together, so I want to put Cosmos data over in Synapse. All you do is just click the buttons and enable things, and now all that Cosmos stuff, maybe that's MongoDB, maybe that's a graph database, maybe it's a SQL database, whatever it happens to be, will pop over inside there. But wait, there's more. We have something called Dataverse. How many of you have heard Dataverse? Dataverse is in Office 365, so I can go get that spreadsheet we talked about under the secretary's desk, under his desk. I can grab that from there and add it into the link inside Synapse. And there's even other things. Let me see if I showed the connections. Let me go back, so I want to show you those connections. That bears seeing for a moment. I think it was right. Was it right here? Okay. Where's my choices? Let me go forward a little bit here. Azure Synapse link. Is there a pause button? Hold on. No, I popped out. Let me show you this one more time because I want to point something out. Under here, let me see. Storage account, good. Let me go forward a little bit. I think I click on it once, hopefully in this demo. If not, I'll just tell you. Pretty sure I click on it. No, I guess I don't. Okay. Here's something you can do inside the Azure Synapse link, excuse me, the Dataverse Synapse link. This is amazing. You can go get Google stuff. You actually go to Google Office and pull those in all through this. There's literally no data you can't find. Okay, we need to move on to the last slide here. I want to give you the QR code link. Let me recap what you've just seen. So if you want to do the QR thing to let them know. And for question thing, didn't see any here, but if you can grab me after, I'm going to get off the stage for the person coming after. What is this? What is Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform? It's Microsoft working together better because we have to. Somebody made me. So we are. We want to make sure, instead of making you do something else, creating a new thing and trying to force you to switch to that thing, why don't you just use what you like and make us integrate it? So that's what it's for. Was this useful? Just as an overview of this? Okay, fantastic. Listen, we got to get to some more sessions today. The parties tonight, make sure you dress up. We've got all kinds of things happening. We've got customers roaming around. We've got friends roaming around. Make sure you make the most of this conference. Thank you so much for your attention and spending time with me this morning.